In the world as we have come to know it today, democratic and constitutional principles hold true. But what went wrong with Myanmar? One of the most recent democratic experiments was trumped with a military coup. We are all familiar with the video of the woman dancing as a cavalcade of military vehicles approached the Assembly of the Union. Was this the same with everyone else? Can surprise be attributed to the coup's success? Namaste and welcome to New India Junction. I'm Nivedita Tiwari and today we are talking about Myanmar. Surprise did seem to be one of the first feelings in the fledgling democracy as large-scale protests only emerged a few days later. But what was it that motivated such a strong move by the Tatmadaw, the Myanmar military? Why did General Min Aung Hlaing appoint himself as the head of government and then declare a year-long emergency? Let's travel back in time to understand the situation better. In 1962, the military had assumed control for the first time with its commander, Ne Win, assuming control. After almost 2 decades, Aung San Suu Kyi returned to Myanmar in the late 1980s and formed the National League for Democracy. But it would still be some time before an elected government would assume a leadership role. A landslide election victory for the NLD with almost 80% seats was scrapped by the military as it refused to relinquish control in 1990, with Suu Kyi placed under house arrest. In 2008, following Cyclone Nargis, the military framed a constitution that was upheld through a referendum which garnered 92% support. It was in 2010, however, when Union Solidarity and Development Party, backed by the military, declared victory in the elections. The NLD, on the other hand, had not contested. Finally, it was in 2015, when in one of the first openly held elections in Myanmar, that NLD with Suu Kyi at its helm contested and emerged as a clear winner, moving on to form the government. In the years that followed, this new democracy, just making its way onto the global stage, was troubled with the case of Rohingya Muslims, which rapidly snowballed into what many claimed to be a humanitarian crisis. Battling allegations and global pressure, Myanmar went to polls 5 years later in 2020. The NLD emerged with outright majority again. However, the military claimed several irregularities in the process, which brings us to the present-day Myanmar. Myanmar's history defines its brand of democracy as one with a civil-military dynamic, at least for now. However, with just 33 seats for the USDP, the military was concerned that it may very well be sidelined when it comes to the country's policy decisions. The functioning of the political dynamic for any country is an evolutionary process, and with a democratic government in place, the Tatmadaw's influence in the political sphere may have been gradually defined. But the extension of any olive branches will now have to wait. On February 1, the Tatmadaw seized control just before the newly elected parliament was set to meet. This was followed by the imposition of a year-long emergency and detention for many of the country's elected leaders. Was there a possibility of a different outcome if the military's concerns were addressed, or if there were genuine efforts made in this direction? We may have to wait for this answer. A heartening aspect, however, has been the understanding India has assumed following these developments. As the world's most populous democracy, India has always favored any and all democratic experiments. But it has never been immediately dismissive of any failures. The statement from India's Ministry of External Affairs that noted these developments with deep concern and supported a process of democratic transition goes to show the faith India places within its neighbors. Moreover, India has also been pivotal in drafting the UNSC's statement regarding the situation. Any immediate and reactionary decision issued against Myanmar, imposing sanctions for example, would have alienated the country even more. Therefore, the poise and the composure India has advocated should go a long way. The experience that comes with maintaining a democratic mechanism for the better part of a century would also do well if applied to the current situation. With protests now sweeping across Myanmar from Yangon to the coastal cities at its periphery, the current government has been put in a difficult position. The only direction to move would be forward, but doing so with a heavy hand may be misguided. Already, there are some reports alleging an external motivation, and if the administration attempts to suppress these protests, these rumors would be closer to being confirmed. In fact, it would be interesting to see if the new regime may be willing to include the country's civilian leaders in the process of government. If an understanding can be reached between the democratically elected government and the military, it very well may usher in a brand new democratic experiment, however unlikely it may seem at the moment. India, with its strong cultural, security and economic links, will definitely be rooting for restoring the country's democratic mechanism. But if we are to look at the past, other Asian nations may not show such restraint before they interfere. We'll find out soon enough. We'll be bringing you all the latest developments. Until then, be sure to like and subscribe and remember to stay safe and healthy. Dhanyavad and Namaste.